That was a goal the kids set out at the beginning of the season, was a chance, an opportunity to four-peat, really. And now we're here.
Tonight's Chuck Smith Show, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service, is also brought to you by our loyal sponsors. Charlie's Bar and Restaurant, located at 800 Shore Road in Summers Point. Meet your friends at Charlie's at the shore since '44. Chico & Son Sub Shop, located at 1620 Tilton Road, Northfield. Choose the #1 sub shop in South Jersey. And the Docks Place, located at 646 Bay Avenue in Summers Point. Book your dinner reservations now at 609-926-0404. Thank you for your support of Mainland Regional Football.
But when you have a solid program, a lot of that can take over what an individual might do. Before he releases the ball, he takes a shot right as he releases it here. And for him to stand in there in the face of that, and that's just the confidence that he has. And like I found myself just trying to catch my breath for a bit because of the excitement and just the pressure of that moment. This is a game that the kids, you live for.
This is the Chuck Smith Show on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Now, here's Coach Smith and your host, Nick Kosko.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me, as he is every week, is Mainland head coach Chuck Smith. Coach, good to talk to you again. This is not a season wrap-up show as we move on in the playoffs. You guys knocked off #1 seed Burlington Township, 15-13 on the road in a thriller on Friday night. You guys advanced to your 4th straight South Jersey final. You'll take on Cape Atlantic League rival Cedar Creek on Saturday at their place at 12 p.m. So it sets up for a great South Jersey Group 3 final. But we'll first start with the craziness that was Friday night's game, where you guys built a 15-6 lead, looked like, all right, it's over, and then Burlington made it crazy right at the end, including an onside kick recovery. So just walk me through a very intense game where you guys are still thriving here and now playing for another sectional title.
Yeah, Nick, at this point in the season, it's about just surviving and winning, whatever it takes to win. And we found a way to do that the other night against a very good, very talented Burlington Township team. It was a heavyweight fight. It really was. It was a very physical game, probably the most physical game we've had all season. Defensive battle back and forth. Both teams moved the ball a little bit, but bogged down often. I think we punted the ball at least 5 times, just us. They went for it a lot on 4th down. And then all the excitement didn't happen until the last 3 minutes of the game. So it was this defensive battle for, 45 minutes, and then 3 minutes of the game, all of a sudden it was like a whirlwind. But it was a great victory for us. It's one of those games where it's sad to see somebody lose, Yeah. I mean, I'm glad our guys won, but at the same time, they were just as deserving to win also. And that team showed why they were 10-0. And they have a lot of those guys back, so I'm sure they're going to make a lot of noise next year.
Yeah, they'll worry about next year now into the offseason, as you mentioned before. 10-0 team could very well be 10-0 again next year when it comes back around to this time of the year. When you look at a game like this, and you've had your fair share of playoff victories that have been blowouts over the last couple of years, where you guys have cruised, obviously, the state championship year 2 years ago, you guys were pretty much thwarting everybody. Last year, there were some thrillers, but, you go back to last year's state semifinal up in Somerville, where you guys won by a point in overtime, 2-point conversion. Did you get the sense of this game was kind of similar to that, where it's like, it's not over till the fat lady sings, to use an old expression? But it looked like you guys, and again, I was following it from afar on Friday night, up by 9 to 2-score game, but then they score on a quick touchdown. I believe it was a 62-yard run by one of their talented running backs. Then they get the onside kick. What was going through your head and everyone's head on that sideline at that point?
It was insane. They're one of those teams that have so much talent that they could just take one play, could change it just like that, and it did. When we went up with that touchdown, when Johnny Franchini hit Jake Blum for the touchdown, a great catch, great throw, and a tremendous catch by Jake. Put us up. I thought, wow, I think we got this one now. They exercised all their timeouts on the drive. Both their quarterbacks were out of the game. They just went into like a wildcat formation with their running back who has over 1,500 yards. And they put the freshman wide receiver in the backfield, and he hit a 64-yard touchdown run.
Of course.
And then they made the extra point, cut it to 3 points or 2 points, and then they onside kicked it. We had our hands team out there, and unfortunately, we didn't recover it. And they recovered it, and then drove all the way down to our 7-yard line, and then had a procedure penalty, which pushed them back. And then the kicker just missed it wide right, But it was chaos,
Wow.
Those final minutes there, And I give them a lot of credit because both quarterbacks were out. They just really ran the ball. I think they threw 2 passes with their running back, there at the end, just kind of desperation, just because time did not allow them really to get tackled on the field again. And it showed why there's a high caliber football program and were last year and will be again next year. But it was a great game. It seems like ever since the Somerville game last year, and then again the state championship last year, we've been in a lot of tight battles.
Yeah.
Like this year with Millville and the prep and so forth. And then all of a sudden this game, in the playoffs. But that's how it's supposed to be at this point in the season. You're facing good teams. Every team each week now is better than the one before it,
Yeah.
But we were just fortunate to come out of there with a victory.
Yeah, it just seems like you guys are battle tested. I know 2 years ago it was a different type of squad for you guys, and it was just total domination. But the last 2 years, we mentioned it a bunch of times this year and last year, the schedule is just so daunting. The top of the West Jersey Football League. You're battle tested in the playoffs. It turned out well for that state semifinal last year. Turned out well for this sectional semifinal just on Friday night. When you look at the offense, Johnny Franchini, again, his stat line looked pretty solid for the night. 2 touchdowns, had 140 yards, also had 46 on the ground as well. But when you look at, I guess, the offense as a whole, I guess, wasn't too consistent on Friday. Was it just mostly timely that led to those 15 points? I feel like it was more of a defensive battle on Friday between you two guys.
Oh, yeah, it was. We got the opening kickoff. We drove down the field and scored a touchdown. John hit Jake Blum, I think it was a 27-yard pass to start the scoring off.
Yeah.
But their defense had us under pressure all game. They did a great job. The number 8, their linebacker, he might have had 100 tackles. I don't know. It just seemed like he was in on every single play. He was all over the field. They were very fast. We knew that going into the game, very fast. And, Johnny played well, though. I think he was something like 12 for 15 or 12 for 16, 17 for passing, something around those. Kept us in there with some timely passes, even in that last drive when, we were only winning 9-6, and we needed to hit a play, and he hit Jake for that touchdown on 4th down, But it was a defensive battle, both ends, and our defense played tremendous, against an offense that's been putting up a lot of points this year and has a lot of talented weapons. And, kids like Jack Doherty, Brady Callen, Anthony Santos, Colt Russo, Jake Blum in the secondary, Lucas DiBiaso, Eben Coons, we had 3 interceptions in the game, a lot of pass breakups, handful of sacks in the game, a lot of tackles for losses until really the last drive.
Yeah.
They really had negative yardage rushing the ball against us. So the guys did a great job again against the rush. It was one of those old school football games. It wasn't flashy, but it was one of those ones where both teams were hanging on the field after the game, and you really gained a lot of respect for your opposition in this game. And like I said before, it was really hard for me, even being the victorious coach, to watch another team lose after their effort like that.
And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of mutual respect coming up this week. I know you've seen Cedar Creek up close and from afar since they were became a Cape Atlantic team when they became a school over a decade ago. I know they're one of the new schools, but they have a lot of success in the playoffs over the course of their history. Obviously, Tim Watson was on your staff, and before he was leading Cedar Creek to a bunch of sectional championships when he was the head coach over there. But James Melody has been doing the same thing, and now they're back in the sectional final, kind of where they expect it to be pretty much every single season. So now it's you guys, Cedar Creek, an all South Jersey final, true South Jersey final here in group number 3. What can you say about them, I guess, on your first impressions of them this year? They're coming at 9-2. You saw them on Saturday playing a very defensively sound game against a really talented Pleasantville team that was turned around this year by Elijah Glover. What can you say about the Pirates going into Saturday's sectional final?
Yeah, Coach Melody's done a great job. I've gotten to know him the past couple of years. I've known him since he's been the head coach, really. We've coached in the All-Star games in the summer, North-South All-Star game the past couple of years. He's done a great job. They had a tradition of success under Coach Watson when they first started up the program and made it to a handful of sectional finals and won a couple. And I think they won a regional crossover game also before there was a true state champion. And then Coach Melly took the reins and kind of kept it going again. I think he's won a sectional title himself already, but they have a talented roster. I think they have like 5 kids that have like a college commit. Quarterback's a great athlete. The running back is tough. He's got over 4,000 yards in his career. Their defense is fast and punishing. They got a lot of talent on the back end of their defense. They do a good job. They're a sound football program, and it was a game that was very similar to our game Friday night, watching them against Pleasantville, where it was really a defensive game. And it was just a matter of a big play here or there, that broke the ice on it, and they hit a touchdown pass late in the game to take the lead in the fourth quarter and held on to it. It was a play that they tried to hit earlier in the game, and then they came back to it later in the game because it just missed it early in the game. It was open, and they came back to it, and it was open again, and hit it for that game-winning touchdown. But they're a tough team, and like you said, in the beginning of the season, that was all the noise that they were one of the favorites to win a sectional or be in the sectional championship again. And here they are, 9-2. I think they lost to Union at the beginning of the season at the Battle of the Beach. And then they had a little hiccup there right at the end against Ocean City before the end of the season. But they're not to look lightly upon, obviously. I mean, they beat a very good Pleasantville team last week. And they have a tradition of winning, which goes a long way.
Yeah, they won a sectional title back in 2019 when they were in Group 2, actually. They've had their battles with Camden. I think they lost a sectional title game to Camden just a couple of years ago. But you mentioned that regional championship. I think it was the year right before or 2 years right before they instituted the overall state title. I think it was the year right before. 13-0 under Coach Melody. They were dominant that year and beat Woodrow Wilson 35-34 in that regional championship in Group 3. So they've translated that success from Group 2 to Group 3 over the last couple of years. And as you mentioned before, other than the Old Bridge loss to start the season and a upset loss to Ocean City, they've pretty much dominated their way through a schedule. So when you look at, I guess, what they have, you already kind of mentioned with their quarterback, Frenchman Bethea, 18 touchdowns this year, only 5 picks, nearly 1,300 yards. But their offense runs through that running back, Amir Dunbar, one of the best in South Jersey since he got into high school. Obviously, if you follow just the Cape Atlantic schools, he's one of the best. He's one of the best guys within the old school Cape Atlantic League flair. What can you say about trying to defend that duo? Obviously, their receivers like Jameer Campfield, for instance, he can really stretch the field, go up and get the football as well. But I feel like that offense for Cedar Creek really runs through Dunbar.
Yeah, they keep your toes. They're a running football team. Dunbar's a tremendous running back. He's powerful and really physical running back. He's a big boy, with speed and some moves. Watching him the other day, it's the first time I ever saw him live. I just saw him on tape and that was it. But I always like going to see the teams live when you can, which is few and far between nowadays because everybody plays Fridays. But he's impressive when you see him, just the way he runs the ball. And he reminds me of an old school, like a miniature version of Earl Campbell, just like to run through you instead of around you. And then of course you have the quarterback who's a threat also, he could be back there to pass and not have anybody and all of a sudden tuck and go and he can go. And then they keep you on your toes because of the receiver. You gang up on the run game and they're going to go right over your head with the passing game. They got a couple talented receivers, but the Campfield kid is really good at stretching the field, making the catches, running on the ball. He's got a lot of speed. So they're dangerous, obviously. They're 9-2 for a reason, and we're one of the top seeds in the bracket, because of the success they had this year, so we'll have our hands full defensively.
Looking at their defense led by linebacker Justice Payne, has over 100 tackles this year. Mason Beck, their defensive lineman, has almost 60 tackles as well. How do you attack this defense? Again, you saw them against Pleasantville where that was a big-time defensive football game where it felt like you could hear the pads cracking through if you were watching the Huddle live stream, you could hear the pads cracking when those guys were hitting each other. So how do you attack this defense, especially when you have guys that just fly to the football and basically it seems like their entire defense is a magnet for the football as well.
Yeah. They pursue to the ball, they're very fast defensively. Thank God we played Burlington Township ahead of this because they're very fast also. Very similar team in defensive speed. So it's a good test, and hopefully we'll learn some things from the Burlington Township game offensively to prepare for this week also. But, we're still putting our game plan together, trying to attack these guys. But they're good. They're fundamentally sound. They play their positions well. You can see that across the board from their defensive line, their linebackers to, Dunbar plays like an outside linebacker rover type position. Sometimes he's in the box. A lot of times he's out of the box. And their safeties are very athletic. The two safeties they have back there, and one of them sometimes rolls down when Dunbar goes into the box. They're quick. You just have to play sound football. You got to make sure you stay on task and you're blocking through the whistle and staying on your blocks and protecting the football. Because when you get to this point of the season, a turnover could be, really magnified in a game like this. And, we've done a good job so far of taking care of the football this postseason. And we saw what happened. Burlington Township had 3 turnovers against us and really nicked them in the knees a couple times the other night. So we really got to take care of the football and just be methodical with what we do and our approach.
You guys are playing on the road again, and I know the final home game was your sectional quarterfinal game against the rival Ocean City. You played that one on a Saturday. What changes this week? It's not a far road trip this time. It's only over at Cedar Creek, so it's a little bit more local. And again, a true South Jersey final, all Cape Atlantic League final. What do you guys do with the extra day now, knowing that you have to play on a Saturday rather than a traditional Friday night? What goes into, I guess, the week of preparation? It's a road game, but it's not far, so I don't know how much changes with you guys when you do that compared to what you did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it kind of gives us another day of rest and recovery. After a physical game like we had on Friday night, we needed that extra day, just to get the kids back up the par. We had a couple of nicks and bruises here and there as you go, which is expected when you come away from a heavyweight fight like that. It just gives you another day to prepare and slow down. But the thing that's good about the Saturday game and being a close game too is we kind of treat it like it's a home game. We're able to have our team meetings, position meetings, and do our mindset development and stuff like that before we get onto the bus. We're able to do that when we played Ocean City in the first round and do this no school this past week. On Friday, we're able to do the same thing before we got on the bus to go up to Burlington Township. So it's kind of like we're treating this Saturday kind of like it's a home game also, where we can do those things that usually we can't do on the road. Usually the bell rings and we're hustling to get onto the bus and hitting the road, because you're on the field for a 6:00 game. You're on the field at 4:35, so you have to give your time. I don't care if you go 5 minutes or 35 minutes. Everybody comes off the bus has to go to the bathroom. So you have to build that into it also. We're just treating it just like it's a home game where we can do our thing at home and kind of relax into it, not feel that, the bell rings at the end of school day and you're in a panic mode now to get ready for the game. So there's a little bit more time to do that, a little bit more time just to recover and kind of take it a little bit easier in practice this week. Cause you are who you are at this point in the season. You got to tweak this and tweak that and adjust this or add something, a wrinkle here or there at this point in the season, but you are who you are. And right now it's really just about being healthy for game day.
What do you make of it being an all Cape Atlantic League final? We referenced that a couple of times, and I know most of the playoff success that you guys have had over the last couple of years have been over teams that are either elsewhere in the West Jersey Football League or just elsewhere around the state from these other conferences, but they're grouped into your playoff grouping, which is natural, but it is kind of cool. You've had the run-ins with Millville in the playoffs before, so you've had that in terms of, okay, we're very familiar with this program. Now you're playing Cedar Creek, where a couple of years ago you guys were in Group 4, they moved up to Group 3, still weren't crossing over. Now you guys finally do at the peak, essentially, for lack of a better term, at the peak of your powers on both sides here. What's it like playing a very familiar foe for the crown here in South Jersey? Yeah,
it's kind of neat. I'm old school, so I like the old Cape Atlantic League. Even though it doesn't exist, we all still talk about like it still is in existence. But I think it's really cool that, in Group 3, you have us two battling for a position. You got in Group 4, you got Millville challenging Winslow for a sectional title. Group 5, you got Atlantic City going for a sectional title. So it's really neat, that we have the teams. I don't even know how many teams we had in the day, 18 or 19 roughly, football teams like around that, that we have 4 or 5 still going for a sectional title right now. It's really cool. And that's one of the things we miss. You miss those rivalries and those divisions the way it used to be. Hopefully we kind of get that back when we do this realignment to a degree, with our division makeup kind of. Because you don't get to play, like we haven't played. I don't even know the last time we played Cedar Creek, 4 or 5 years ago in the regular season, something like that, at least. So it's kind of neat, we're playing them. I think we've only played them maybe 2 times in our history, of playing them. But it's neat, it's somewhere in the backyard, it was either going to be them or Pleasantville we were going to play with another Cape Atlantic League school, from back in the day. But I think it's neat, and it brings a lot more notoriety to our area, because how it is with football.
Oh, yeah.
Everything runs through North Jersey, and then you have Central Jersey, and then everybody forgets about South Jersey. But we've had our fair share of champions, sectional and state champions over the recent history of this. So I think we're doing a good job down here.
Yeah, let's not forget you guys in Millville have won state championships for the South Jersey schools down here in these in these counties around these parts as well. So, Coach, I'll leave you here with this one again. 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday afternoon for the South Jersey Group 3 title, Mainland Cedar Creek. There's a lot of history for you guys. You've had stretches in your program's history where you've won 3 in a row. This is a chance now. I believe this would be the first time in Mainland history where 4 in a row is a possibility, or you could win 4 sectional titles in a row. What does that mean to you, the program? And I mean, I would imagine, as far as the top of my head, I'm no great historian, but off the top of my head, I don't know too many traditional Cape Atlantic schools that have won 4 sectional titles in a row over the course of the last 30 to 40 years.
Yeah, I don't know either, to tell you the truth. I know we won 3 in a row back in the 90s, and we won 3 in a row just now. But that was a goal the kids set out at the beginning of the season, was a chance, an opportunity to four-peat, really. And now we're here, with that opportunity to try to capture that. So it's a driving force for us, because nobody else in our school history has ever done that.
Yeah.
So they kind of can stand alone saying that this senior class has won 4 straight. There's a handful of those kids that were active participants in the first one. So it's a goal for us, and we're just fortunate that we have that opportunity. You set those goals in the beginning of the season, those lofty ones. You have all the little ones along the line that we have, like, beating Ocean City and beating EHT kind of things, those local things. And you set those big ones at the end, and you hope that you have a chance at the end of the season to accomplish those things. And here we are with a chance to actually hit that first one off the plate right now. Yeah. So that's the motivation for us this week, is to go out there and do something that's never been done at school before.
You just brought it up. Isn't it kind of wild to think about this senior class? And it feels like forever ago, but their freshman year, there were some, like a Johnny Franchini, Nate Cashy, maybe some others that sprinkled in as freshmen. They were a part of that first sectional title during this run, and then, making a run to the state semifinals, and sure enough, making that state championship run just the very next year. It feels like forever ago. I mean, did you were you thinking about that at all? Even on the bus ride home Friday, it's like, hey, we're playing for a 4th straight sectional title. It's like, wow, well, it feels like yesterday or long ago that they played in that first one.
Yeah, it seems like forever ago. You're right. I can still remember the first game those guys played against EHT in the Battle of the Beach. I still remember that day and not knowing what was going to happen, and then all of a sudden we're here, approaching the end of their careers. And we talked about last week when we had our team meeting at the beginning of the week, like, hey, we have an opportunity with a win this week to accomplish that big goal that we set at the beginning of the season, an opportunity to win a 4th straight sectional title. So that was a motivating force for us this past week, was to get over that Burlington Township team, to have that opportunity. And we were fortunate enough to win that game. Now we have that opportunity, and it's kind of mind-boggling to a degree that, there's not many teams, you see teams win 1, maybe 2 in a row, or get to a finals, or something like that. I know, like, we were fortunate to make 3 one time, and another time we made back-to-back appearances. We lost 1 and then won 1, it's just been a great string of luck for us and hard work, really, by the kids, that we've been this successful over this 4-year period. It takes talent, but also takes a lot of hard work, and I can't say enough or thank enough of the kids and the coaches, the time and effort that they all put into this, because it's not just during football season, it's year round. If you're going to you want to achieve the success that we've had over the past few years, it's got to be a year-round commitment. We've been fortunate that the kids commit to the weight room in the off season, and the coaches are doing their thing in the off season to get better. So when we hit summertime, we really hit the floor running, and going.
Mainland Cedar Creek, 12 p.m. on Saturday at Cedar Creek. South Jersey Group 3 sectional finals winner advances to the state semifinals, and still the chance to play for that 2025 state championship in Group 3. Coach, good luck on Saturday. It was a thrilling win. It's probably going to be another thrilling game here against the Pirates on the road coming up. Good luck on Saturday, and we will talk again next week, win or lose. And as we said last week, hopefully it's a win for you guys, so we avoid the season wrap-up for a little while.
Exactly. We could postpone that hopefully another week at least. And I want to just thank you, Nick, for everything you do for us. And Matt, of course, putting everything together all the time. The amount of people who watch this stuff is just mind-boggling to me. To people, even people at other games, when they come up to me and say, "Hey, I've seen your show," or "I watched the broadcast," and stuff like that. It's just really awesome. You guys do it as like a professional group at our high school level, and I really appreciate that. And everybody from Mainland appreciates it.
Well, we appreciate that as well. We're happy to do it. Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. We'll see you next week.